Hey everybody, it's Erin. Hey, so I actually filmed the garden tour that you are about to see on June 16th, and then I got so busy with stuff that I never got around to editing it. So I went on to Instagram and I asked Instagram, do you want to see it anyways? And it was an overwhelming yes, so I'm going to put this up and hope to do another garden tour for you very soon, because obviously at this time of year, a lot of things change very quickly. So anyways, hope you enjoy this garden tour, but just keep in mind this all was about 2.5 weeks ago that I made this, and things are starting to grow finally. So anyways, enjoy. Hey everybody, so today we're going to do a quick garden tour. If I look like I'm tired, it's because I have spent 2 days trying to whip this garden into shape, not just because I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a tour, but also because I'm heading out of town. And you know how this is, if you leave your garden at this time of year for more than a couple of days, it comes back and it's a mess. And it will be a mess when I come back, but less of a mess, hopefully, having gotten some of the basic stuff out of the way. The garden is, there's a lot of holes, things are still filling in. We've had a super slow spring here. We do not have a ton of things that are in bloom, but I wanted to give you guys kind of a baseline, show you a few of the things that are looking good right now, but also give you a baseline for what you might see in future garden tours. So right now I'm standing in front of the annual border along the patio that I planted up in a video not too long ago, and things are really starting to fill in here. I'm in particular just loving the lobelia, which is this bright electric blue. Looks just so startling, really catches your eye. And the window box is starting to fill in. I'm not going to show you a lot of containers in this video because I'm going to do a container tour. So you might see them in passing, but I'm not going to talk about them much. So next up is what I call our deck garden. I don't really call it that. It's our patio garden. So a lot of the front is annuals. I've got a lot of dahlias in here and a few other things. Things that are looking good right now though are these clematis right here. I've got, this is sugar sweet, I think lilac. I have sugar sweet lilac and sugar sweet blue blooming on the same thing here, and I think this is lilac. But isn't that pretty? Those flowers are small, but this will fill in this whole area. One of the first clematis to bloom in the garden. In the back, you can see I've got a viburnum plicata back there. And I wrote about this on the blog the other day, but I had a lot of problems with the viburnums this year. They all are dealing with botrytis. Fortunately, not too bad. I've just been cutting off the pieces that are affected. That's often caused by stress, and I think that's really a winter stress issue. So let's keep going this way. This is just kind of a continuation of this garden. I still have to get some annual seeds in here. And of course, that's the limelight that I pruned up in the hydrangea pruning video, coming to life well, despite what a lot of people thought I might do. Over here is the garden that I just planted up the other day. Obviously, it doesn't look much different from what you saw then. Let's come on down the path towards the garage. So I just wanted to pause here and show you guys this new shrub that came into my garden this week. This is Tough Stuff Aha. And look at those flowers. It came to me fully in bloom. It just is amazing looking. And it's just stunning. I hope it looks like that all the time. Just talk about an eye catcher. Once we get into this garden, there is, of course, this spruce. And then I've got a clematis growing up the spruce because you guys know me, I grow a clematis everywhere. Lots of ceranth in the front here. As you come around this side, I've got some white wands Veronica. White wands Veronica here. And then this is a perennial geranium that I cannot remember the name of. And I can't even remember what the flower looks like because the foliage is so pretty. I just think it looks great. And the new addition in this bed this year is this great arborvitae. This is called Frankie Boy. It's Thuja occidentalis. And I just love it. It's like a bad hair day. I think it's really cute there. I hope it does well in that spot. And then I transplanted some European ginger over here. Hopefully we'll fill up this corner, which would be a great contrast to that. On this side of the bed, this is the bed that I redid in a video last year, kind of pulling things from the garden. Here is this fabulous moonrise Japanese maple that I planted last year. It made it through the winter like a champ. It is so beautiful. I'm just loving it. I did have to fill in some of the heucheras that I planted in the front of this bed did not make it through the winter. So I came in here with Heucherella Sweet Tea and filled that in because I thought that orange played really well off of the Japanese maple there. Okay, next up is this bed by the garage. This is always sort of a work in progress, but it's getting there. And I would say the star of the show over here is the clematis that is, the climbing hydrangea on the garage. I can't tell you how many years old this is, maybe 5 or so. It's doing really well. And I'm really hoping to get it to grow along the entire wall here. So I keep sort of training branches that way and stretching it out. This is the north side of the garage, you guys. So talk about a great way to cover a north-facing wall. In the back, I have the hornbeams that I planted last year. All made it through the winter just fine. They're looking good. I'd have to compare them to a picture last year to see if they're any thicker than they were last year, but this is just their first full, actually, well, their second year in the ground. They were planted almost a year ago exactly. So they need a little time to get doing their thing, but they're looking good back there. This Hudsonii spruce right here has just gone nuts this year. Well, I mean, I would say I'm 5'2". This is probably twice my height. And I would say at maybe 2 feet of that happened. I mean, it's not supposed to grow. It's not supposed to be fast growing. It just has grown a ton this year. I love these sort of weeping branches on it. That's a lovely tree. And then as we come over this way, this is an area where I'm just, this is sort of what you do when you work with what you have in your garden. So I divided a bunch of hostas and moved them over here. I put some all gold hackle and cloa. I've got some sedums over here, which are looking a little abused right now because I gave them the Wisconsin version of the Chelsea chop, which is cutting them in half basically. Sometimes I will prune out the tips. And then you can actually propagate those really easy. Just stick them in the ground. This year I had no time for that, so I just took a big pruners and just lopped off the top of them. And we've got some foxgloves coming in here, which will be blooming soon, so that's great. Across the way here, across our little lawn here, this is the other side of the garden that I just planted up that you guys probably saw in a video. I'll just quickly show you what's really exciting over here, which is these fabulous tree peony blooms. This one's been open for probably 3 days, which is really long for a tree peony bloom to last. Look at the size of that. And then these two are just opening up now. I think this is called Dr. Ruppel. Something like that. I bought it on sale actually many years ago, so I just kind of picked it up because I wanted a tree peony. It's beautiful there. And then of course there's really a serious foliage moment in the front here. By the way, I have been calling these hostas autumn frost. This is not autumn frost, these are June. I have autumn frost in that other garden. These are all June hostas. But this just looks great, and then I love this hackle and cloa that I have growing up here. The clematis, which is bluebird, that's growing up our new willow tree here, is just starting to fade out. And I don't know if you can see it, but I've got Guernsey cream clematis popping up through the blue globe spruce in the back there, which is always sort of a fun look. And lots of other things are starting to fill in here. I've got some poppies coming up that will do their thing soon. We've got more dahlias over here, geraniums. Big hosta, incredible hydrangea. There is an étoile Étoile Violet clematis that always climbs up that railing over there. Everything's doing well there. Okay, next, let's take our way around the house. I've showed you guys this bed before and nothing has really changed here except that the lamium has really gone nuts, which is great because you'll see in a minute I've been spreading it around the garden. It's just as always just a nice little moment. Again, hostas that I divided, the other half of this hosta is on the other side of the stairs. So it mimics that incredible hydrangea thing. And then I think this might be guacamole, I'm not sure, but look at the size of this hosta. It's getting, I mean, it's huge. So, you know, when you got two hostas like that, I don't feel the need to really do anything else more than what's here, and that's kind of a good feeling sometimes. Okay, now we're gonna walk around the back. So the Mauritii viburnum has a big hole in the side of it because, again, this one also suffered from some botrytis. So I've cut out all those affected branches, but the flowers are still beautiful on it, and this is still just such a wonderful shrub to have. It gets quite big, I think, in some places. I'm not sure it'll ever get that big here. And then we've got this area over here, and you can see there's a lot of blank spots in here. And I always sort of, this is another area of the garden that I've mostly taken from my own garden in terms of divisions. So there's a few things in here. I've got a new hosta in here. I've got a rose over here. I've got a Scotch broom here. And then we've got some phlox and some things. And then there's behind that, there are some poppies that hopefully will come up there. And then of course we've got our crabapple here, which is just finishing up blooming. It didn't bloom super well this year. I'm not sure that it's getting enough sunlight, to be honest with you, but it's doing well otherwise. So I'm not gonna worry too much about that. And then you just kind of come back here, and this area again needs some filling in sometimes. Over here again, you know, I obviously have relied heavily on hostas, and thank goodness for that, because there's this whole area, and you'll see it from the front when we come around. This is all spirea, and they're beautiful, but it's all similar texture. So these big, bold hostas that are back here are really helpful. And then back here is this is an autumn gold ginkgo, and this is a tree that is recovering. Several years ago, the tree cutter guys were cutting down one of the trees near here and cut it in half. So I established a new leader on it, and it's doing its thing. It's quite wide, but it's a lovely, lovely tree. I think what we're gonna do is walk around this way so I can show you what's happening on the front of this bed. So what's happening here is this is our Venus dogwood, and you can probably see it doesn't look great. So I think this is suffering from some winter trauma. Again, we had such a terrible winter. I'm just letting it play out. There's nothing I can do about it at this point. So if there are some areas that are definitely dead, I will prune those out, but I'm going to give this plenty of time to leaf out and do its thing, and just kind of baby it a little bit this year. And hopefully we can get it to recover and be strong enough so that I don't lose this tree, because I do love this tree. You might be able to see some of the flowers on it, which are only about, you know, that big. Normally those flowers are you know, 4 times the size they are. So it's clearly was stressed this winter. As we come across around the front here, I wanted to show you one of the things that I think is looking the best in the garden right now. Look at these viburnums behind me. This is Judei viburnum, and I grew those from 4-inch pots maybe 8 years ago, something like that. And now look at them. And I'm going to show you them from the other side so you can see just how tall these things are. But those flowers are beautiful. They have this kind of cranberry center, and the little florets around the outside are almost a peach color. Really stunning in the garden. And then of course this is all my hydrangeas right here. So I'm just going to quickly walk you around the back of this so you can see those viburnums from the other side. So this is a little path we built through this garden, but okay, this is me. Check out how tall these viburnums are. I'm basically standing at root level with them right now. I had no idea they were going to get this big. And I think probably what I'll do is maybe have to do a little cut out some of the main, maybe one stem each year so I can start bringing the canopy down just a touch. Not that I don't love it, but maybe it's getting a little too tall. Along here, again, just a few things. I do have this Regerzia, I think I'm saying that right, which is really beautiful foliage accent, and some lovely maidenhair ferns there, which are kind of nice little moments along this path. So this little section of the garden is what I call my hot border. This is where I put oranges and yellows and reds. There are a few blue things here. I've got some monkshood in here, which will bloom blue. But I make this really fiery and hot. So I'm always trying new things. This orange flower that's blooming so nicely is Tithonia, Mexican sunflower. And I grew those from seed, and they are spread throughout all over here. So this is just the first one that's blooming. And then I also threw in some dahlias in here, and there's a few other things kind of mixed in here. What is behind me is another climbing hydrangea, and on this is one that's growing on an ash tree, which, like basically all our other ash trees, succumb to emerald ash borer problems. And because this one was so close to the house, we felt the need to cut it, but I did not want to lose my vine. So you can see that we topped the tree. And I was a little worried about how that might look, but you don't even notice that it's topped because you're busy looking at this beautiful vine. So that's such a great plant. Over here is the shade border, and I struggle with this area because it's very hard to keep the wild plants at bay behind it. So I'm always taking out these ostrich ferns, which try to take over my life. But I'm happy with how this has come together, even though, Dorothy, out of there. I'm happy with how this has come together, even though it's a lot of bits and bobs of little things mixed in there, but I think it's starting to work kind of cohesively with all these various, this is mostly hostas. There's some epimediums in here. Some heucheras. As we come down here, I've got, this is shredded umbrella plant, which is doing really, really well. In here, this is maybe my favorite hosta. It's called, I believe, Dark Shadows. I love the colors on there. The ferns are doing really well in here, so I've been kind of moving some of these ferns around to get them to the front because the hostas are starting to sort of eat them. And then you go down and it's just kind of continuing. So this is always a fight to keep this area looking good because, like I said, behind that it gets challenging. But I'm happy with how it looks right now and happy with how all these hostas are looking. So this is along the west side of the house, and there's not a ton in here. It's mostly hydrangeas, to be honest. Over here is big Annabelle hydrangea. I've got a ligularia back here that does its thing, and a hosta. This is a hydrangea that is about to be removed. This is Nico Blue, which is root hardy here, but not bud hardy, so it never blooms for me. And really a hydrangea that doesn't bloom doesn't do a lot for me. In front here, I've got, these are all Tough Stuff hydrangeas, which have all put flower heads on. They're doing really quite well. And of course, back here, I've got the Espalier Asian pear, which is actually doing really well this year, which is really nice to see. It'll get a prune, maybe in July, beginning of July. I will prune some of these back because you want to keep pruning them to make sure that it keeps its form. Over here, just to give you an idea of where we're at compared to what might be happening in your garden, is these are our peonies. So our regular herbaceous peonies, and that is the size of the buds right now. So that's where we're at. Many of you have probably had your peonies flower already. And then over here I've got wine and roses, Weigela, which is just about to bloom. It's got little red buds on it, and of course another clematis. The circle garden you guys have all seen in a video recently, but it is already starting to fill in nicely. The The Evening Sensation petunias that I planted are really starting to fill in and look great. They have this beautiful big flowers on them, beautiful purple color. The chives are all blooming. I will cut off these flowers soon, but they're just beautiful when they bloom. The clematis, that's plural of clematis, that are growing up this trellis here are all doing well and doing their thing. And then of course, this is where I've got the HS Flame Dahlia. This is the Signet Marigold, which was not in bloom when I planted that, but we've got a couple little flowers, and look at that sweet little orange, bright orange color on these. Such a good plant. And then everything else, I mean, nothing else looks a lot different from when you saw me planting it, although the lady's mantle is starting to flower. But things are starting to fill in, so that's great. Okay, I want to show you one more area, which is out by the driveway before we wrap up. So this is the garden that we planted up last year, and I'm so happy with how it's coming together and doing this year, and especially these alliums, which are just so great. I think this is Globe Master, I'm not positive, but they're just the perfect little accent in here. If you remember about this garden, this has very few plants on it. I went with a really limited palette. I've got dwarf Alberta spruces in the back, 2 pagoda dogwoods, boxwood, and then this is Hackaloa macra. This is the green version of Japanese forest grass. And then I just put these in, and that's the only plants that will, I think at this point, ever exist in here. Just a really limited, simple palette. It's very easy to maintain. Mostly deer resistant. They nibble a little bit on the pagoda dogwoods on occasion, but otherwise really happy with this garden. I'm so happy with that garden that I'm going to repeat some of it on this side. So this year we took down an enormous ash tree, and which suddenly leaves us with A, some sun to deal with here, and B, all of a sudden now we've got that side of the driveway looking great, and over here we're in fern land. And would you believe that I actually moved these ferns here? Boy, do I regret that now, because once they're here, they're so hard to get rid of. But I think what we're going to do is fill in this area and get kind of a little bit of a version of that garden repeated on this side, and then there'll be some extra room. So I'll do something else that'll be a little bit more naturalistic, I think. I'm trying not to let it turn into a massive maintenance situation. I just don't need any more gardens to maintain. So that'll all be happening. I'm not sure exactly how that'll all come together. And there is a little creek that runs through here too that we'll have to contend with, and this drops off. So it'll be a challenge, and you'll see that all come together. But that's basically a quick walk around of the garden. And I think it'll give you kind of a baseline for where everything's at so far. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you're enjoying your garden. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.